Good. Welcome everyone here today. It is my great honor to recommend Manisha Girotra, one of India's most respected business leaders and deal makers. She currently serves as the CEO of Moelis India, where she has built and led a top-tier investment banking franchise. Over her career, she has guided landmark transactions that have shaped entire industries, including Vodafone's acquisition of Hutchinson SR, Hindalco's acquisition of Novalis, and United Spirits' acquisition of White and McKay. Those deals just didn't move markets, they rewrote India's presence on the global stage. Before joining Moelis, Manisha served as the CEO and country head of UBS India, overseeing investment banking, commercial banking, markets, equity research, and wealth management. Earlier, she had held leadership roles at Barclays and began her career at ANZ Grinleys in London. With each step, she proved that a woman from India could not only enter the world of global finance, but also help shape it. Her accomplishments have earned her the repeated recognition in Business Today's 25 Most Powerful Women in Business in India and Fortune India's 50 Most Powerful Women in Business. She also brings her leadership to the boardroom, serving as an independent director with companies such as Naspers, Prosus, Sona Comstar, and Mindspace Business Parks RIT. But before and beyond the titles and accolades, what stands out about Manisha is her courage to walk into male-dominated rooms, her clarity of vision in high-stakes moments, and her commitment to lifting others as she leads. Her story is proof that as a first-generation woman, starting with grit and determination, someone like her can rise to the very top of global finance. Please join me in welcoming Manisha Girotra. Manisha, we are so grateful to have you here today. And I wanted to, one, have you address anything that I didn't mention in your very, very impressive bio, and then also just introduce yourself to our audience. Many young women in low and middle income countries, first in their family to go to college, first women in their family to want to pursue a professional career, and see if you had anything along those lines that you wanted to speak to before we dive into our questions.
Thank you. Thanks for the kind introduction. I think you mentioned most of the things, but I think what's really driving me now in this chapter of my life is to give back. I was fortunate to get the opportunities I got. And so I spent a lot of time mentoring young women. I also work with a foundation called Central Square Foundation, which works not just on women empowerment, but also works on primary education in India, which is a big problem in India. So we're working a lot with four different states in India, collaborating with them to basically upgrade the quality of primary education because so the basis is at least strong for the young children. So yeah, so I think that's what's exciting me. Of course, my day job continues to excite me and the board work I do, but I think this is really where my passion is now, to see how I can give back in my own small way the blessings that I was fortunate enough to receive.
Thank you so much for sharing. Well, along those lines, I mean, I'm sure you've worked with hundreds of young women, seen them across India and other countries in which you've worked in. When it comes to betting on young first generation women today in India and beyond, what are the possibilities that you see maybe even in this room?
So look, we all know that, and you young girls know that too. That for us, if I were to just take India, for India to progress, you need a more equal world. You can't have a country wanting to grow at 10% GDP growth rates and have half the population sitting at home with high quality degrees. Most Indian girls are parents are betting on them. They are valedictorians. They're doing really well academically, and then come marriage and the babies, they're expected to sit at home no matter what the income class is. So I think that needs to change. There needs to be pride in a woman who works and is able to juggle all her multiple roles. And I think that's really important for not just India, but for the world, right? I mean, we need an equal world, and an equal world requires women to get equal opportunity. So I think that's really where we all need to work towards, men and women collectively, to strive to make a better world. So I think that's really, I hope that answers your question. Uh, why is it that you need women in the workforce? You need them not just for a better world, but a better growing world, for better opportunities for our next generation. You need everyone, all hands to the deck.
But speaking of those opportunities, for many of the young women that we work with, where they go to government funded schools, parents never went to college, go from areas that are less developed and even in their own countries, they feel like finance in particular is a closed door and reserved for maybe the elite or people that have already been connected and have those connections. Do you have any advice, maybe from speaking from your background, in terms of practical first steps that they can take if they don't have those networks and resources already built in to their lives?
Look, Sunny, I would say the comment you made was probably far more relevant in my generation, where it was like the community of finance was small and it was all very much based on which colleges you went to, who your parents were, what your network was. I think that's fast changing, and the thing that changes it the most is education, right? Get to the best colleges, best universities, and get that education, because I think that gives you a level playing field. Second, as I always say, networks such as LinkedIn, etc. today afford you a network and offer you a network which we didn't have. For us to network, we had to go be invited to that special cocktail party or that dinner party and go and meet the managers and the employers of these big organizations. No longer the case. You can reach out on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. So use those platforms, network. Yes, the education is important, but beyond the education, you do need to put yourself out there because everyone's busy, right? So to make yourself noticed, you do need to stand out and differentiate yourself. So in school, college, differentiate yourselves over and above the education, and then learn to network and use these platforms to basically get yourself seen and heard. And I can tell you that in our organization itself, in Moelis India and in UBS, most of the people we hire come from small towns, the people with limited opportunities when they started with, and just they use their education to basically get themselves on top of the game. And today they are the most senior people in our organizations. They've done very well. They're hungry. They network well. They work hard. They're not nervous and so scared about working the long hours, which investment banking requires, and they're thriving in our organizations.
If there is a girl, let's say she's using LinkedIn, but doesn't come with experience or maybe doesn't go to the best college, how do you suggest someone kind of pitches their value add to maybe get time like someone like yours or get the time of someone else? Or how do they think about kind of moving through that imposter syndrome and feeling like I don't have enough credentials to even ask for someone's time or apply for this opportunity or go and pursue this thing that I feel like I'm very unqualified to do so.
So I think you raise a very valid point, which is that all of us women, including me, suffer a lot from imposter syndrome, right? We feel we don't deserve it, we haven't got enough deals under our wing, or don't have enough experience, or we don't have that good college education. We're always underinvested in our own self in terms of self-belief. And you see the male counterpart with one-tenth the credentials, with one-tenth the experience, they'll pitch themselves as, that we're missing out if we're not hiring them. So I think and I hope your generation changes it. I see it still not changing fast enough. I think women just do not sell themselves hard enough, right? And I think, as you said, let the person who you're pitching to decide that, right? Don't yourself prejudge it, because then you appear so defensive in your pitch that you're bound to fail. Present yourself, credentialize yourself. If the potential employer or the person you're pitching to doesn't like it, they'll themselves, they know what's good for their organization. But please do. There are certain skills which you may have which you're not even thinking about. For example, women have high EQ, they have high empathy, and maybe that particular role requires that, and maybe the potential person you're speaking to identifies with that in you. So invest in yourself, do as much as you can in school and college beyond the education. But most importantly, I always tell women, just pitch your case candidly, clearly, and 7 out of 10 times, I promise you, you will the other side will think of you as much better than you are, because just the way we are, right? We're so unsure, and we just want to be this perfect at everything before we go and pitch for something. But the real world is not about perfection, right? You're looking for, in fact, for complementarity. I'm looking for a Sanya, I'm looking for a Manisha, which have maybe complementary skills in a team, and let your potential employer decide that. Don't prejudge yourself.
I think along those lines, we have a question from our audience. Mithaful, do you want to unmute
Oh,
yourself?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you help me though? Yeah. Am I audible now?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, I cannot turn on my camera for some reason. I think that there's a system. However, I think I would like to ask, hi, it's
Hi.
very nice to meet you because I recently completed an internship in BNP Paribas, one of the investment bank in Hong Kong. And me coming from like not a finance background, I really enjoyed that internship. To be very honest, I didn't know anything about the investment bank before I go there. So I went there, I got to know a lot of things and went through these things. I saw how passionate people are there, how people work until midnight sometimes. So it was a really like a shocking things for me because I used to think like corporate is something, it's go to 9 to 5 or maybe six a maximum, but they used to work like until midnight. And uh, I think it was a life changing thing for me. But at the same time, my question is that me coming from Bangladesh, actually I'm from Bangladesh, and the people here does not see women in finance specifically. They for us, our choices were from my parents still. It's like being a doctor, being a teacher, or maybe an engineer. So that's where my boundary were. So now when I see that world and I see myself working there as an intern, I think that's a new world. But after the internship, now I'm thinking that, how should I continue these things? Or maybe what should be your like an advice to me, someone who was not from finance background but done an internship in the investment bank and loved this opportunity. So yeah, thank you so much for listening.
No, congratulations for getting this internship. BNP Paribas is a great investment bank. So I'm sure you enjoyed yourself, and I'm glad you didn't get worried by the long hours that we bankers keep. Look, I think when I started off, I was the only woman in investment banking. So I don't know whether in your country there is an opportunity to join. If there is, you should definitely pitch for the role. Don't get deterred by the fact that you're the only woman in the conference room or the boardroom, or just push yourself harder if there is an opportunity. If not, maybe go back to Hong Kong and these other geographies where you applied, and apply on a wider basis. I don't know whether BNP gives return offers, but otherwise, apply to other firms, other organizations through LinkedIn and other platforms, headhunters, search firms, etc., and try and see if you can get into one of these other geographies. I don't know whether you're constrained to live in Bangladesh post your graduation, in which case I guess you have to apply there. Otherwise, with your internship, with your education, the world's your oyster. You can apply in other geographies in Asia.
Oh yeah, thank you for answering because it's like a very great time for me to get this opportunity to listen to you because it's kind of like I felt when I got this email, I felt like it's for me because I need these workshop now most of. So I would like to Saniya, if I can ask another question, just my last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so it's just that someone coming from there now. I would like to know, like people are there are really professional. They are warm. At the same time, they are professional. They need to be though. So how should I preach myself as someone? I think connecting to LinkedIn is fine. Posting about my experience is fine, but at the same amount of time, how should I preach myself that I am really interested to get like going there again? And there is application process that I understand, but at the same amount of time, I think as you said, like letting them know that I'm interested could be a very good way to trying to uh, like make myself in a place there.
Yeah, look, I think, as you said, one is to credentialize yourself. The other is to talk about your, I think in your application, when you put in your application, in your cover note, talk about your BNP experience, talk about the projects you worked on, the fact that you work long hours, the fact that it excited you, the hours didn't bother you, what you were learning excited you. Talk a little bit about the project. I'm sure they assigned you to some project or mandate, etc. Talk about that. Let your passion come through in your cover note on why you think this is, you really found your calling. You accidentally went into this, but you basically found your calling in this line of business. Talk a little bit about what excited you. Talk a little bit about the team that you worked with, how you were useful to the team, even though you were an intern, how you pitched above your level, etc. Let the cover note talk clearly convey your passion for investment banking and what you gained and what you learned, and then talk a little bit about why you want to continue in this industry. What excites you, whether it's the finance bit, whether it's the mergers and acquisitions. I don't know what part you worked in. Weave that in, and I think that should be enough to get you a leg into the door. And then of course you have to, I'm sure, go through the financial modeling, etc. They'll make you do some desktop work, but first, to get your leg into the door, please do put credentialize yourself through an exciting cover note on why you think you're the right person for this job.
Yeah, that answer. Thank you so much. I worked with corporate sales team. I worked briefly with institutional sales and also corporate sales.
Okay.
So I would like to congratulate you because I think women in finance like you are like kinds of inspiration to me right now, kind of role model, and I can relate from those people I have seen in BNP Paribas to you that how much hard work you need to do actually for this role. So thank you for being a role model.
Thank
And
you.
I hope
And
that
good luck.
I
Good
can.
luck with your application. And I hope you get in, and you'll enjoy the ride. I've been here doing this for 33 years, and it's a great career to go for. So good luck with it.
Thank you so much.
Well, that was great. Leads in very well to my next question. When back, Manisha, if you can reflect when you were in your early 20s starting your career, and back then, obviously, we had a lot less women representation in finance. And when you were the youngest or the only woman at the table, in the room, at the job, how do you feel like you found a voice where you feel like you could advocate for yourself through, share your ideas, take a seat at that table, and eventually claim space in these situations at work, in meetings, after work, to eventually get to the point where you feel like your values, ideas were valued, heard, and to a point where people wanted you to access leadership positions later on in your career?
So, Sanya, I think to start with, as you said, rightly said, when I started, I was probably the only woman in all boardrooms, meetings, etc. Uh, I think what helped me is the fact that the one thing that I strongly believe that helped me more than anything else and propelled me was the fact that in my house, in my home, in my family, for my dad, I was a favorite child. My brother, I have a younger brother who came like a distant second, if at all, right? And I think that really helps because there was so much wind between behind my wings because I really didn't believe when I went in and I found these men not making eye contact with me, not shaking hands with me, not listening to me. I didn't think there was something wrong with me. I thought these men were odd, right? Because I was so used to being the prima donna, for lack of a better word, in my own home that and my father believed in me so much that I think that gave me a lot of confidence to keep on going. Having said that, it wasn't easy. I remember when I used to go into offices the first time, everyone thought I was the secretary or the assistant to the team which is going to come. So they would be like, "Okay, so where is your boss?" And I would be like, "No, I'm this. It's Manisha Girotra. It's not Manish Girotra, right?" They would think. So it was really hard because if you're young and you're trying hard and you're sort of working through the nights, and then after that in the day nobody even wants to make eye contact with you at the client's office, or the boys club in the office is sort of trying to diminish your credentials. It does take a toll on you. And I think the only way out, Sanya, is to just keep going. They're not going to make eye contact with you in a meeting. I remember even when I was heading the team and there were guys around me, the client would look at the men around me and not look at me because they were going through a paradigm shift themselves. They were not used to women coming in and talking cash flows and modeling and M&A, etc., etc. So they themselves didn't know what are we supposed to do with this woman in the room, right? So, in a way, sort of also giving them a little bit of space that look, they weren't used to it. They weren't used to seeing women. At best in India, they had seen women in roles of journalists, and I think, as was mentioned earlier, maybe as doctors and teachers, but beyond that, you didn't see the women. So I think the way to do it, and I remember my father really encouraged me because when I would come home and tell him these stories and call him and say, look, nobody listens to me. They don't even remember my name. They just marginalize me. And he was like, look, just keep going, right? And I think that's what I did. The only way when the going gets tough is to just keep going through it, and that's what I kept doing. And after about a year, 2 years, with some clients 2 years, with some clients 5 years, with some clients never ever did it happen that I finally gained credentials and started to be taken seriously. I remember initially when I would go into meetings, when the client would get friendly with me, they would be ask me, "So when are you getting married?" Or when are you going to have your babies, right? I mean, it was like in their mind, they thought of it as I'm doing this for a few years till I get married. I'm entertaining myself. or till I have the kids. It wasn't like, and I don't think, my husband was in a similar career. I don't think anyone asked him these questions that were asked of me, right? Nobody asked my husband, when are you going to get married, or when are you going to have the babies, right? But I was always asked these questions because it was always thought that I'm here for 3-4 years and then I'll be gone. And it's very demotivating. It's uncomfortable when you're in a team and you're being singled out to be asked these personal questions, because you're there as a professional. You're not carrying your personal life into work. So that it was very uncomfortable. B, it was just disheartening. But you just keep going, and it's tougher. It's tougher for the women, and even in your generation, I'm sure it'll continue to be tough. But I think the most important thing in any career is to be resilient, right? If you ask me, what is it as a young person that you need to, which skill is it that you need to hone the most? It's to remember that work is not personal and that resilience is the most important thing. If you punch down, come back harder and bigger and firmer, and that's the only way to go in a corporate world. And men, if this is for men too, it's not like women. Women have it hard. Women have it harder, but in any career to come back, because a career is success and failure. You'll see many setbacks, failures. You'll have to pivot yourself, especially in your generation with the way careers are becoming redundant due to AI. You'll have to keep reinventing yourself, and you can only do it if you're resilient. So, yeah, I think more than anything else, I would say my resilience and the love and support of my family helped me get through the initial very challenging years when one was objectified, trivialized, not taken seriously.
No, you make very good points. I mean, we've even had women talk to us saying that during their job interviews, the employer will ask, like, are you married? Are you planning on getting married soon? Do you have kids? Just to see, like, determine hiring decisions based off of that, or maybe for women, sometimes it's thought of like, oh, this is just a hobby that they're doing before they become mothers. And I mean, in your case, you balance not only an incredible career, but also, you have a family, you have kids, and you've done all of these things. But how did you, one, maybe do it on your own terms? Like, I'm gonna get married and have a kid when I feel like I'm ready. And for women maybe today that feel that maybe don't have as much of a supportive father as you did, that was kind of cheering you on from the sidelines, and maybe parents that maybe want them to maybe put aside career aspirations and focus on raising a family, how do you suggest that they balance those conversations?
So look, it's tough, right? I think you need the support, or if you're going to get married, if that's a path you want a life where you want a marriage, you want a husband, you want kids, you want a job, then as I joke with all the young members in my team, that when you're getting married, interview your mother-in-law. Don't worry about the husband. But having said that, I think what you need is a supportive spouse. I think more than anything else, that matters, right? You need someone who's your cheerleader, who's in your corner, because especially when the kids come, you need someone who's willing to look after the baby when you're doing the red eye or when you're working the all-nighter, right? And if you don't have that support, then it's a real challenge, because then you're just going home and fighting. In fact, I remember speaking to this young colleague who's in UBS a while ago, and she started doing really well in the organization, earning really well, getting all the promotions, and her mother-in-law basically got and her husband got really upset with her because they said that she wouldn't come home and cook for her husband, because the boy's not used to being fed food out of a box, or from a domestic help. And it reached a stage where she had to decide between her marriage and her career. It got so hard for her because the husband wasn't doing well, he lost his job, and she was doing really well, and he just couldn't. And I'm sure some of that spilled into this whole pettiness about, oh, you need to come home and cook. I'm sure that wasn't the deal breaker. The deal breaker was just that he wasn't ready to celebrate her success, right? So I think you need to choose very carefully. And I always say, if you're ambitious, then choose well, or don't choose at all. Remain single, but don't choose someone who you think will be an impediment, because that'll just make you unhappy. So be very careful on personal choices if your career is important to you, because those two things at times are completely, like, as Indra Nooyi said, your biological clock is completely in contrast to your professional clock. And yeah, I had our child 9 years after marriage, because I knew that the first 7-8 years of investment banking, you just can't have a kid and be working till 3-4 a.m. And in the Indian context, that was really strange because everyone gets married and in the year one pops a baby, right? And I know my mom and my mother-in-law got a lot of queries from family and friends as to what's going on and do we need help and do we need a gynecologist, and they were like, no, they just don't want to have a baby. But in a society, they needed the courage or conviction to stand up and say, look, it's fine if she doesn't want to have a kid, then that's her choice, or if she wants to have a kid later. So I think the fact that I married into a family which was all working women. My mother-in-law is one of eight sisters, and they're all doctors, married to doctors. I think helped me because Sanjay, my husband, just thought a working wife was a way of life. I remember he was made fun of by his friends because over weekends he would go grocery shopping and very proudly tell everyone that I need to go now if he's getting a game of tennis because I need to run all these errands. Manisha was not there. And I know he got ripped by his friends, but he was self assured enough to not see that as any issue, right? And I think that helped me. The fact that he didn't think doing the household chores was a woman's job, and he was equally proud running our home, managing our child. He's absolutely, I would say, 50-50 when it came to managing our child, even to date. And I think that helped me. So my advice to all girls would be more than the men. I think the girls just choose well, choose carefully, take your time, because without the support at home, it just becomes very difficult. And we're emotional creatures, right? We're perfectionists. We want to do well at home. It's the point you made earlier. We're not even only perfectionists at work. We're perfectionists at home too. So we'll take it personally if at home we are being told things are not going well, or the food's not hot enough, or the house is not clean enough. So I think just be very careful how you choose.
Okay, no, I mean, good to know. I think that point of better to have someone great than maybe not anyone at all. Uh, the last thing you do is want your partner to be an impediment to what your life goals are and what your career aspirations are. And just asking you, reflecting through your career journey as you rose into major leadership roles, and if you reflect on your last like 30 years in banking, do you remember there being like a certain fear of yours that kept showing up, or something that maybe you were scared of happening, or something that constantly would affect you or bother you? And how do you feel like you walked through it anyway?
So, Sanya, I was a very shy child to start with. I grew up in Simla in the mountains, very protective, all girls school. So, coming into the corporate world was a big change, right? And especially because I became a CEO at 33. I was going in and pitching to the largest conglomerates, the founders, the main shareholders. Yes, so it was pretty much a huge pivot for me from being what I was to what I became. And I remember a lot of times feeling the imposter syndrome, saying I was not even an MBA, right? I was an economist. I was actually wanting to do a PhD, and on the way I bumped into this career and loved it. So a lot of times I would feel, am I equipped enough? Do I know enough? Do I, I have a child. I can't network as much as I in the evenings as some of the other people. Maybe I can't put in the 20-hour days. Maybe I can't come in on Sundays every Sunday. So I would a lot of times feel that am I the right person for this job? Could UBS or Moelis have someone else who could do this better than me, work the longer hours, etc., network more, go out on bigger trips with clients, whatever was needed. So yeah, I think often this thing would rear its head up, and then I had to tell myself that look, I am doing the best, and I had to convince myself, rationalize on how I do deserve this job. So yeah, I think what I said to all of you is what I also went through, which is that do I really deserve all this that I've got, and could the organization do better than me? Especially in the times when sometimes I had to prioritize my personal life, the kids weren't well, or whatever, it's something, or in-laws weren't well, or parents weren't well, and I had to prioritize that. I would be like, and I had to cancel some meetings. It really tore me apart. But look, I can tell you a lot of the men go away at 3 p.m. to have a beer with, or 4 p.m. and on Friday to have beer with friends and colleagues, and with the boys club, and they don't feel guilty. It's just us guys who just beat ourselves up because we're just so much harder on ourselves.
No, I totally agree and resonate with you. And I know we had a couple of people raise their hands. Feel free to put your questions in our Q&A box. And then over the time when the conversation sort of deems fit, I'll go ahead and answer them or have Manisha answer them at the end when we have time for questions. I want to talk to you a little bit about setbacks because naturally, especially as women, we tend to face more just as, a result of our backgrounds and the systemic barriers in place. And I want you to reflect maybe on a time that you feel like a deal or something that happened at work or even in your personal life maybe didn't go your way, but maybe on the brighter side, kind of having you learn or reflect on your learnings about resilience and how maybe a moment of failure turned into a moment of strength for you and how you sort of have learned to accept or maybe frame setbacks and failures in your own career.
Yeah, sure, plenty. Look, as an investment banker, you're only as good as your next deal. So every time you lose a deal, it's a setback, and you just have to, pull yourself up and say, look, introspect on what went wrong, and then come back and do better. So that's more just the way of our lives, and you just have to. It's a gladiator sport. You play alone, and there's nobody who's going to help cry with you. You have to sort yourself out and move on, pick yourself up and move on. But on a wider basis, I would say, look, when I left UBS, it was at a stage that I felt it was best between me and my employer that I move out. I sort of, identified with UBS for 20 years, and everyone in India would, in fact, on mobile phones, save me as Manisha UBS and not Manisha Girotra. And that's how much in my mind I had started connecting myself with the organization. And so when I felt like there was no other way but to leave. I took it very personally, right? It was the first major failure or setback. I'd always been a valedictorian, got my promotions earlier, got paid well. So I think I took this very personally, and felt terrible for myself, but also just took me a long time to recover from it. And today, when I look back, I think to myself that, look, what was I wallowing in so much self-pity for? I mean, I got Moelis, which was set up by my ex-boss, Ken Moelis, who's the CEO of my boss in UBS. And, I got to work in a place where there were a lot of ex-UBS people. I love working with Ken. And more importantly, it re-energized me because I set up a whole new organization in India, right? I did another startup. I set up UBS in India, but then I went and set up 12 years ago, Moelis. And I tell you, Sanya, all that they say about how these things re-energize you are true, because at UBS it was getting a bit repetitive. I'd been doing that for 15 years, but this was like you had to start ground zero. Nobody knew what the name Moelis was in India. Nobody knew what Moelis did. It challenged me. It showed me who my real friends were. It showed me which were the clients which were willing to bank on me, because essentially they were banking on me. Nobody knew what the organization was. The organization was 4 years old globally at that point. So I think it really tested me, pushed me. Attracting talent was a challenge because people were like, every major investment bank, global and domestic, is in India. So why should they come and join a new firm? So they were really basically, relying on me and taking my word that we're going to make this work. So that sort of puts more responsibility and ownership on yourself. So look, 13 years later today at Moelis, I think that was the best thing that happened to me, because I think somewhere I would have just gone sideways, got very comfortable in what I was doing, and not challenge myself. And this was an opportunity at the age of 40 to have got a new role. And look, so I think sometimes your failures are good for you too, right? As they say, sometimes that the universe think for you also. So, and don't beat yourself. Uh, so that I think was a major learning for me. On a personal level, before I had my child, because at UBS was a very small team, I had to, if the CEO of a organization was calling, they needed to see me because I was the CEO in my organization. And I remember prior to having my daughter miscarried a couple of times, and that itself was, and that was because I had to travel, and at a time when the doctors advised I shouldn't travel, and that was a personal setback too. So, but look, at the end of it, then I got a beautiful child. So I think sometimes life, you just have to not beat yourself up so much and forgive yourself for some of the mistakes you make, and rely on the bigger plan. And as I said before, Sanya, when these setbacks happen, then you need to be resilient, right? And come back and say, okay, I made a mistake or I failed, but look, I still have a lot of my experience. I know how to do these things, and I will do it again, right? So yeah, I think that those were some of the failures that I learned from, and no longer do I think of them as failures. I think of themselves as great learning opportunities, because success doesn't teach you anything. Success, everyone celebrates you and puts you on the front page of magazines and newspapers, and dulls you into believing that you're the best thing. And which you're not. You're highly replaceable in a corporate world, and I think setbacks teach you that. So I always tell people, learn to fail early. In fact, don't fail like me at the age of 40 for the first time, right? Fail early, make it a way of life, because that's how you will do better. People who want to do startups, etc., you need to have the mindset to fail and come back after recalibrating yourself. So, and as I said, for all of you, because careers are going to change so much, you may find your job redundant after some years, and then how do you pivot yourself, etc. So yeah, celebrate your failures, learn from them, and move on.
And then I mean, we just talked about failures, but I want to turn the conversation now towards success. And you've worked in corporate America for 30 years, beautiful family. I've done all of these things that are society's predefined notion of success. But I want to ask you to reflect on maybe what success means to you now, and how is that maybe different from what it meant to you and what you thought about what success meant at 22 or 23 when you were just starting your career?
So success at 22, 23 meant like getting that promotion, getting the highest bonus, being celebrated by your manager, the classic corporate rat race accolades, right? Nothing different from anyone else. Beat myself up if I got a lower bonus than my peer, beat myself up if my promotion got a bit delayed. So all of that stuff, I think, and that's good, because I think that's how you excel in the younger years, because you drive yourself harder based on the successes you get, or the perceived failures that you have. So I think nothing wrong with that. I think all of you should, if you're joining the corporate world, be focused on all of that, because that's how you'll excel, learn, and do well. Today, I think is very different. Today, as I said to you, Sanya, I really want to give back. I want to retain. My biggest single point agenda is to try and help women come back into the A, try and retain them in the workforce. B, if they need to go, try and get them to come back into the workforce. So I work with an organization called Aspire for Her, which wants to put 10 million women into the workforce by 2026. So we're working on that. I'm mentoring young girls based on my experience to say how you can juggle the corporate world with your personal lives, etc., etc. So I think that more than anything else, I also have a girl child school back from where I came. So I think those are the things that excite me now. And if I can help women stay in the workforce, come back into the workforce, nothing gives me more happiness or joy than that.
That's beautiful. Well, I'm glad that you're here with us today and that resonates with your values. And I mean, speaking more about values, I know a lot of people say, like, don't let corporate America make you jaded about the world, don't let it corrupt you. And I mean, you've been in the game for a really long time. I mean, me and a lot of the other women on this call are just about to enter it. And I want to ask you to reflect on maybe what are the values, both personal, professional, family values that you feel like you've refused to compromise on, even when it could have costed you?
I think the one thing that all of you must do is hold on tight to your family, friends, school friends, college friends, people who are not in the corporate world. What happens, I see, with people in the corporate world, in the world of finance, is that post work, they also just socialize, and their entire ecosystem becomes the world in which they work. So it's the people from finance, from other investment banks, lawyers, private equity, and that becomes your ecosystem. So as a result, when you go home or on weekends, when you meet these people, invariably the conversations also become either about that, or if once you've had kids, then about the kids' schools and what classes should we make them do, etc., etc. So what happens in all of that, Sanya, is that you lose yourself as a person. You don't have people who just love you for who you are, who don't really care whether you were promoted to MD at the age of 33 or partner at the age of 32, who don't give a damn what you're doing. My closest friend to date thinks I fix ATMs, at work. And he calls me and he says, the ATM in our building is not working. And I'm like, well, I don't really do ATMs, but never mind. He's my closest friend. And, it's nice because it's so important to have somewhere where I just go and be myself and talk about nothing related to work, have those special friends. So I think all of you, please do hold on to your school. It becomes harder. You have to make that extra effort as because work consumes you in corporate America. But I think do make that extra effort once a week, once in 2 weeks, once in a month, to keep in touch with the real world, your real friends, your family, who will always tell you the truth as they see it. Hold on to them, because that's the most precious thing. Second, get a hobby, right? And do something, get a passion, whether it's music, whether it's, reading, whether it's a sport. which takes your mind off this whole corporate rat race and gives you a perspective that life is bigger than that next promotion or the next bonus, right? The world moves on. The world is not about, the world has much larger problems than just worrying about your bonus. I mean, your bonus is important, but so I think hold on to that, hold on to your passions, hold on to your friends, and I think that's what will give you a more holistic life and keep things in perspective. Because as we said, corporate life is a seesaw, right? There are ups, there are downs, and the downs are really down, and everyone in the corporate world will isolate with you if there's a down, right? But your true friends, your passion, your family will stay with you and celebrate you no matter what. And I think that's what helped me get through my difficult phases, whether it was just the tough part about managing and juggling work life, or whether it was about a support system for my family as my parents got older, etc. I think all of that helped me, and I think please hold on to that, especially as women, because we're real emotional creatures. We need that ecosystem around us, and don't create that whole ecosystem of just the corporate world around you, because that then just consumes you. Then your mind doesn't grow in any other way. So yeah, so I think that's what helped me.
When it comes to, I mean, eventually we all need a support system at work too, or people that understand our day to day. How do you suggest people navigate creating a community at work, figuring out who's going to advocate for you, maybe who's not going to be your greatest supporter? And then when it comes to mentorship, I mean, of course, I'm sure you've had many great mentors in your life, but you are probably looking for a time for mentors where there was no one that really looked like you. And maybe these girls are also entering spaces when there's no one that look like them. How do you look for a mentor that may not come from that same background, gender, way of life, but still have them believe in you and take you kind of under their wing and support you through your career?
So it is a really good question. I think I didn't, as you said, when I started off, there was no concept of mentors. There was no concept of even HR to go and tell them that, look, I'm feeling objectified in a certain client situation. You just had to, suck it up, so to say. I think all of you should actively reach out for mentors. If you can find one in your organization, if your organization itself is the kind that supports that, that's great, right? A lot of organizations today do. They want to, people to feel supported, etc. The HR itself will help you reach out to such like-minded people. You yourself, as you work, will find such like-minded people if you're lucky. If not, then I think through LinkedIn, etc. I get requests on LinkedIn, or I get calls and emails from people saying, "Look, I'm starting a career in a similar line as yours, and I really want to spend some time with you. And if you could just spend half an hour once a quarter." And a lot of these messages I pick up and I help, because it's not too much of my time. It's half an hour a quarter, and after 2 3 quarters, some of them even feel better enough to just go on your own. So reach out, right? Reach out to other organizations, even if they're competitors, right? You work at Bain, even if you think there's someone in McKinsey who's a good role model for you, reach out to her or him, right? And you'll be surprised at how many people are actually willing to give back. And the first one may not, the first one may not even respond, the second one may not, but the third will. And you always benefit, because I think through my setbacks, etc., if I had that one mentor to tell me that this is okay and you will survive and you will actually laugh about all of this, I would have been it would have been a much easier life. So please do reach out, create that ecosystem beyond friends and family. As you said, you need somebody who understands the corporate rat race too, right? I mean, who understands the perspective in the corporate world. Be lucky if you can find someone like that in your own organization, if it's your own boss, or in your ecosystem. If not, reach out and create a system. And there are enough and more organizations around the world which are now also helping women and minorities to basically carve a better career for themselves. So, but yeah, the onus is on you. You must reach out.
And then when it comes to skill development internally, I mean, we've talked about like AI is changing everything. There's so much volatility in global markets. When it terms of tangible skill sets that these women can develop, especially when they're looking to enter this next generation of finance, do you have any maybe insights on what skill sets they should be investing in, what they should be learn, both like hard skills and soft skills, and if they want to be leaders, what would it take for them to succeed in today's day and age?
I think the answer is in your question. I think the most important thing today is to develop your soft skills. And I think as a woman, while I say it as a blanket statement, I actually do mean it as a blanket statement. We do have higher EQ. We have higher empathy. We are more aware of the room. We know how to read the room well. We understand that this person isn't, resonating with what we are saying. It's just our instincts are stronger. Hone those skills, right? Whether it's through courses or just the way you are as a person. Don't try and convert yourself into one who conforms to the boys club, right? That, oh, you have to look like them, talk like them, think like them to belong. No, be proud of the fact that you're able to differentiate yourself and invest in those skills. A lot of the organizations, by the way, for example, at Moelis, and I'm sure you'll find that at Bain, actually do invest a lot in our teams at all levels to basically upgrade both the hard skills and the soft skills, just given what's happening, right? I mean, now with AI, for example, we're sending a lot of our team members to Stanford and some other business schools, to some other undergrad schools to basically do some one-off courses, etc., etc. So organizations will do it themselves because it's survival for the organizations too. So you don't have to worry too much about the hard skills. Just make sure that you raise your hand for those courses, etc. And make sure your manager doesn't say, no, we have too much work, you can't go for these. You must go for these because your generation, more than anyone else, needs to continuously reinvent yourself. We didn't have to do it, right? We learned about these 8 industries and we were done, right? Steel, cement, etc. You guys, it's like crazy out there. Everything's changing, right? So make sure you raise your hand for those courses and those, the learnings that you'll have internally. Move around in your organization into different departments. Don't get stuck in one project or one department. Be a multitasker so that you can then go and do other things if a particular career falls off. And more importantly, as a woman, be proud of your soft skills, the fact that you have a high EQ, and carry that into the workplace with pride, because you don't have to be embarrassed about it at all, because in today's day and age, when the machines are going to be able to do a lot of the work, it's the soft skills as a leader that will help you win. The teams will follow you because you will show higher empathy, you will have better soft skills, because a lot of the work can be done by ChatGPT, right? So yeah, I think be proud of the fact that you have a high EQ, and make sure you hone it in your organization, and don't let that get buried somewhere because you want to belong to a boys club.
And Manisha, when you are looking for women to hire, or anyone to hire for that matter, or looking for people to mentor or promote, what qualities do you look for in them that seems, or in your experience at Moelis and UBS, seems to be the differentiating factor between those that really do well in their careers versus those that sort of stay stagnant?
Think, Sanya, there is a basic hygiene which we assume that everyone, by the time they get to an associate or VP level, has, right, which is the hard skills: how to make a model, how to do due diligence, how to read a balance sheet, etc., etc. Then what helps you convert yourself into a banker, which brings in the kill? Because when you start, you're not bringing in the kill. You're just, yeah, you're executing on what the senior bankers were. But if you are to become that senior banker who is to go and convince the client that you need to use a Bain or a Moelis or a McKinsey over the competitors, then you need to have the faith and the trust of the client. How are you going to have the faith and the trust? Is when you're able to A, network well, B, have high EQ, read the room well, as I said. So I think as speak well, articulate well, not be that woman who sits in the back and not, or the man who sits at the back and doesn't open their mouth, even though they're geniuses. You need to put yourself out there, be heard, make your presence felt. Not just read the room. For example, a lot of time we take like a 60-page pitch book and we start talking through it, even though the client on the other side is bored after slide 2. But because you made this book, you're like, oh my God, I have such great ideas. The client has to listen to it. No, the client probably wants to be heard as opposed to listening to your great ideas. So, you need to pivot. You need to read the room and pivot yourselves well, which is why I made that earlier point on how your EQ is something that will hold you well. So I think those are the kind of people we promote. In fact, a lot of times the valedictorians from business schools are the ones who don't do well because they just get so consumed by the academia and the theory that they're not able to understand what it takes to succeed in a corporate world. That the guy on the other side wants to be heard, wants his problems to be heard, doesn't want to read your entire deck, wants you to think about what he's saying, come back and make your suggestions. So yeah, people who have a much more holistic personality are the ones that finally do well in the corporate world. I don't think people who are just, I know a lot of people who are geniuses and who are brilliant, but can't make it beyond that level one or two because they're just not able to carry the team along or network or, build a good ecosystem around them. Because at the end of the day, the corporate world is about carrying everyone along, right? It's not an isolated, you're not a solo operator. Whether it's the client or whether it's your team, you need to carry them along. And those are the people that we promote.
And when it comes to your career reflecting, I mean, so many people, even my class at Stanford, were like, 2 years investment banking, then I'm going to do something else. I'm going to burn out after 2 years. I'm going to do private equity or I'm going to pivot because I can't, like, I don't, no one envisions spending a life in investment banking, but you've made a career out of it. So when it comes to the competitiveness of the field and the burnout and the long hours, how did you sort of push through all of that and make a 30 plus career out of something that a lot of times people only go into it thinking that I'm going to do this for 2 years and then leave?
So yeah, I think today a lot of people think that they're only going to do it for 2 years and leave, and I think that's also because you guys have more options, right? In our times, the options were fewer, so I'm happy for you if you guys want to go and go to the buy side or go into consulting or go and do a startup or go into the tech world. More power to you because the world has more professions, right? I think managed to pull it through because I just fell in love with what I did, right? I wasn't meant to be here. I was an accidental banker. I was meant to go and do a PhD. But I think when you fall in love with something that you do, then even though at times it gets really hard, when your baby's like 3 months and you're taking this red eye to New York for a deal, it does physically, forget emotionally, just physically takes a toll on you. But I just fell in love with what I do. To date, I love it. I think any career, for a career is a marathon, and for any career to last, you have to love it, right? You have to be okay to say that, look, I'm going to take that 5 a.m. flight and go to Delhi and from Bombay and do the day trip and come back. Because, meeting the people that I meet, meeting the entrepreneurs that I meet, making a little bit of difference in their lives or in their corporate lives really excites me, right? I mean, if there's a merger or an acquisition that goes right and the corporate says, look, it pivoted us into a completely different strata of competitors and business cycle, it just makes me really happy. Having a team, having set up a team of people, professionals who are both at UBS and Moelis are either with us or have gone and done other things and become heads of India and JP Morgan, etc., etc. It makes me really excited. I'm like, I could make a little difference to their lives. So I think find your passion in your career because I think that's the only way you're going to be able to sustain it. And if the hours bother you and you don't like it, then go and do something else. It's a great training for 2 years, right? I don't think anything trains you as well as the world of finance does, in terms of discipline, experience, and then go use it somewhere else where if you feel the hours are just not for you, it's absolutely fine. There's nothing to beat yourself up, and your generation has a lot more choices, and I celebrate that.
Well, I mean, that's great to hear. And I am curious to know when you kind of accidentally stumbled on investment banking and, women are also thinking about what careers do I start with? What was it specifically about your early years in your career that made it feel like a fit for you? Or what were the qualities of your job or the way you felt that made it feel like this is the kind of career that I feel like I would be good at versus you thinking, oh, I'm going to go back to do my PhD or this isn't the right kind of job for me.
So I think, look, the fact that one of the global CEOs of UBS said this to me that you don't feel intimidated going into a boardroom and making your case and presenting your case. You're not feeling intimidated that you're the only woman or that you're like half the age of most of the people there. And I think that was a reflection of the fact that I loved doing what I did. Right, I loved meeting all these people, understanding the various sectors. I think I would have got bored in a corporate life where you're just doing that one industry, one sector year after year. That's not me. I like the fact that one month we're working in pharma, the other day we're doing something in tech and steel. I like learning about all these new industries, these new sectors, the companies, and I think that's what excited me. That I had a much wider canvas to play with rather than just a Puritan one sector. If I had joined a corporate world, which was also an option for me. So that plus the fact that I like going into boardrooms and helping clients think differently about their business, helping make an impact on how they can change or pivot their business. Uh, Leading team. I'm a people's person. I love people. So leading teams, traveling, all these things I enjoy doing. So yeah, I think I accidentally bumped into a career, and like you said, Sanya, halfway through my career, I had a lot of options to move into other sectors like private equity, especially when they set up in India. But I just loved what I did, and I stayed on, right? Uh, so even though maybe the compensation would have been different and higher, I think I just loved what I did. So yeah, I think it played to my strengths, this career, and helped me hone my skills, which I really wanted to, like, come out of the being the shy young girl, and I wanted to learn finance. I enjoyed doing that. So it helped me learn things I wanted to learn. I was eager to learn and played to my strengths. And that's what helped it sustain for 30 plus years.
And I want to pull into the chat a question that actually goes very well with this. And a girl says that she works in accounting and her BA's in finance, but she doesn't like it at all and doesn't feel like she has any other options in or out of the company. Do you have any advice for her in terms of what she should do? What if it didn't work out like the way you did? It wasn't a good fit. How do women kind of go around pivoting that? Or is there a specific amount of time you recommend someone stay at their first job, even if it doesn't feel a good fit before transitioning into the next one?
So look, that would probably have been the case in my generation. In your generation, if you don't like it, you should cut your losses and move on. Having said that, please don't be a job flipper every 2 years, because I don't think anyone, like, when you're 35 or 40 and you go in with having with six jobs behind you. I don't think that's something any manager will like. But if this in 6 months you feel this is like what the person who is asking the question is feeling, that look, this is just too much of a drag and you don't belong, then either pivot yourself into a new career. If you think acquiring another skill will help, then go back to school, and try and get another degree. If you want to completely pivot into a different line of profession, you don't want to be in finance, then yeah, go out there and get another degree for 12 months, and then come back into the workforce. Or otherwise, then within the workforce, try and change laterally into something that you'll enjoy more. If I hadn't liked investment banking, I would have gone to do my academics, and that was the plan. So you can always have a plan B today, especially because there are options. But yeah, you don't need to drag on if you're not feeling good, and if you're feeling this is too boring, mundane. Today, I think there are enough alternatives. At least explore the world, right? Whether it's the academic world, if you want to do, or whether it's going and looking for jobs, you should just go ahead and do that. Don't keep on dragging yourself.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I know that we're about to wrap up, and I wanted to leave time for one last question for you, which is if you were to give one piece of advice to either the young women on this call that are in their early 20s or back when you were first starting your career, 20, 25, what is one piece of advice that you wish you could go back to give yourself or that you wish you would have known when you were just getting started?
So I think I would say don't be too hard on yourself. Be kind to yourself. I think the most important thing is be gentle yourself. The mistakes will happen in the corporate world, and you are not the only one who are making the mistakes. There are a lot of people who are making it and probably not even reflecting on it while you're beating yourself. So if I could tell myself how to do it again, I would say be easier on myself, and don't be afraid of failures. They are going to be there. They are very much a part of the corporate life. You're not isolated again in that. Just learn from them and come back stronger and bigger, and do it better.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was one of my favorite conversations to date. We rarely like have women. We always have to encourage them to unmute themselves and ask a question at the end. But I mean, you created such a warm, welcoming environment where we had so many young women chime in with their questions, unmute themselves, raise their hands. And so we are so grateful for your time, Anisha. And I am so honored to have been able to talk to you, learn from your career, especially when I'm starting mine. And these young women either currently interning or getting started and putting their foot in the doors in these different organizations, I'm sure have learned a lot from you. So we're really, really grateful. And hope you have a thank you for taking time on a Friday night for us. We really appreciate it. And again, can't thank you enough for your time today.
Thanks, Sanya. It was a pleasure to be here, and to all the girls out there, unmute yourselves in life and wait for the wonderful world that awaits. At least it'll belong to you. Just believe in yourself.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining. I'll send up a follow-up email with everyone's information and information that we discussed in today's call. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.